He poured glue in her hair while everyone laughed. But what this 12-year-old girl did the next day in front of her entire school left the whole room frozen in silence. It started with a tug. Jania Cole was sitting at her desk in the second row, back straight, eyes on the math worksheet in front of her. The room smelled faintly of pencil shavings and cafeteria nuggets from the hallway. Outside the classroom window, a row of sun-faded lockers reflected the Carolina sunlight, blinding even in November. Mrs. Langley, their teacher, had just turned to write a new equation on the board when Jania felt it. A pull. Slight, like a thread being caught. She shifted in her seat, unsure. Then came the sting. A tightness at the base of her neck, like her hair had fused to the collar of her shirt. She reached back slowly, her fingers brushing something. Stiff, sticky. Is something wrong? Mrs. Langley asked without turning. Jania didn't answer. Her fingertips were now tangled in what felt like glue, thick, dry in some spots, still warm in others. A murmur bubbled up from the table behind her. Someone was laughing. Low, mean. Then came the voice she already expected. "Dang, Jania, what kind of conditioner you using?" It was Chase Welling. White, loud, always grinning at his own jokes, even when nobody else was. A few other students chuckled nervously, not really because it was funny, more because it was safer to laugh than to be next. Jania's breathing quickened, her eyes darting around. She tried to pull her hair away from her hoodie, but it wouldn't move. It was stuck, hard. Panic rose in her chest like water in a clogged sink. Mrs. Langley finally turned, confused by the noise. "Quiet down, everyone. Jania, are you okay?" Jania shook her head slowly. "There's something in my hair." By now, several students had their phones out. She could see them pretending to type, but she knew they were recording. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it. Her pain was already somebody else's content. Mrs. Langley walked over and bent slightly to look. Her face changed when she saw the mess. "Oh, come with me. Let's get you to the nurse." As Jania stood, her hair tore slightly at the roots. She winced. A few strands ripped free. There were audible gasps. Someone whispered, "She's gonna be bald." She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared down at the glue-smeared desk, at the thick smear of clear goop that hadn't dried yet, and on the floor beneath Chase's chair, an empty travel-size bottle of Gorilla Glue. No one said anything about it, but Jania noticed who looked away the fastest. The nurse, Ms. Bernard, was kind, but she kept biting her lip like she didn't know what to say. "I'm going to have to cut some of it out," she said gently. "There's just no other way." Jania sat still, all of it. Ms. Bernard hesitated. "It's in deep. We can try to save some, but it's going to hurt." When the assistant principal, Mr. Holbrook, came in, he sighed like this was a scheduling inconvenience. "Well, it looks like someone made a poor decision," he muttered. "Probably didn't think it would cause this much trouble. Kids mess around sometimes." Jania stared at him. It wasn't just messing around. He looked up. "We'll take it seriously, of course, but it's important not to escalate. We don't want this to divide the classroom." "Divide the classroom?" She nearly laughed. Her scalp was burning, her hair glued into a painful clump behind her neck, and he was worried about the classroom? "I didn't do anything," she whispered. Mr. Holbrook nodded quickly. "No one's blaming you," but she saw the way he avoided eye contact. Like this was just a wrinkle in his schedule, like she should be grateful no one had accused her. They gave her a headscarf from the Lost and Found box. Pale green, with a tiny embroidered duck on the edge. It smelled like old gym clothes. She took it anyway, but Jania wasn't done, not even close. Her scalp throbbed for hours. At home that afternoon, Jania sat still on a low stool while her mother, Noelle, gently separated what she could from the dried mess. The silence between them was heavy, so heavy it felt like it pressed down on the walls. Noelle kept her voice low, steady. "Baby, I need to snip a little more, all right?" Jania didn't answer. She just gave a single, tired blink. Every time the scissors clicked, another piece of her confidence fell to the floor. Thick coils of hair she'd spent years growing. Gone. Each strand cut felt like losing something she couldn't explain. Not just hair. Dignity. Peace. "Did the school call you?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Noelle paused. "Mr. Holbrook left a message." Jania turned slightly. "What did he say?" Noelle sighed through her nose. "He said it was a prank that went too far. Said they'll talk to the student responsible. That they don't want it turning into a racial issue." Jania blinked, confused. "A racial issue?" "That's what he said. But Chase said stuff before. About my hair. About how I should wash it more. About how it's fake. He said I looked like a mop." Noelle stopped cutting. Her hands rested on Jania's shoulders. "I know, baby. Why didn't they do anything before?" "Because schools don't always protect who they should." She crouched down in front of her daughter. "But I do." Jania looked away, her throat tight. "I don't want to go back." "You will." "But everyone saw it. They laughed. Some of them were recording." "I don't want to be a meme." Noelle paused, then gently tilted her daughter's chin so their eyes met. "You won't be a meme. You're not a joke. You're a girl who got hurt and didn't deserve it. And you're going to show them exactly who you are. Not with your fists. With your presence." Jania frowned. "How?" "We'll think of something. Together." But her mom didn't tell her to fight back. She told her to show them who she was. That night, they didn't turn on the TV. No music, no background noise. Just the two of them, sitting across the table. A spiral notebook between them. "What would make you feel strong again?" Noelle asked. Jania chewed her bottom lip. "Not hiding. You don't have to. I don't want to cry in front of them." "You won't. I want to say something." Noelle leaned forward. "Then say something. But like, to everybody, not just Chase." "We'll make it happen." Noelle pulled out her phone and started typing. Emails, contacts. She had a friend who worked in the district. Another who knew a school board rep. She wasn't a rich woman. She worked the early shift at a downtown credit union, but she had resolve, and sometimes that was louder than money. While she worked the phone, Jania wrote. First a sentence, then a few more. What she felt. What happened. What she wanted people to understand. She didn't write about the glue. Not really. She wrote about how it felt to walk through hallways where nobody spoke up for her, how it felt to pretend she was fine just to keep people comfortable, how her hair was part of her, and how losing it like that wasn't just a bad prank. It was something deeper. She wrote for an hour, then 2. Her mother looked over her shoulder, silent. At one point, she gently wiped a tear from her cheek with her sleeve. "You sure you want to say this out loud?" Jania nodded. "We're going to need a mic," Noelle said softly. She barely slept. But the next morning she walked into school ready. The next morning, Jania stood outside the school doors in a grey hoodie pulled over her head. The same scarf was tied beneath it, but this time it wasn't about hiding. It was just temporary. She could feel the cool air against her bare scalp, where her curls used to be, and the skin there felt raw, not just from the glue, but from everything it symbolized. Noelle was parked just a few feet away in a rust-red Nissan Altima, watching. Before Jania stepped inside, her mom rolled the window down. "You got your paper?" Jania patted her backpack. "Right here." "You sure you want to do this today?" Jania nodded slowly. "I have to." Noelle smiled. Tight. Proud. "All right then. Show 'em." Jania gave a small wave and walked toward the entrance. Her heart beat fast. Not panicked, just loud. Alive. Inside the school, everything looked the same. Same dull tiles, same buzzing lights, same kids brushing past her like nothing had happened. But today felt heavier. She felt like 1,000 eyes were watching her, even the ones that pretended not to. Mr. Holbrook spotted her from down the hallway. He walked up quickly, clipboard in hand. "Miss Cole, can I speak with you a moment?" Jania stopped. "I heard from your mother," he said, lowering his voice. She requested that you speak at the end of today's student assembly. I just want to confirm, are you absolutely sure you want to go through with that? Jania blinked. Yes, sir. Holbrook hesitated. It might cause a reaction. Just be aware. She didn't flinch. I'm aware. He nodded, more to himself than to her. Okay. I'll let Ms. Diaz know to fit you in. You'll have a few minutes toward the end. Jania headed to her first class, but every period blurred together. She barely remembered what was on the whiteboards or what questions teachers asked. Every second just ticked by until the assembly. When the final bell rang for fifth period, students began filing into the gymnasium. Rows of fold-out chairs lined the polished wood floor. The stage at the front was low, just a single step up, with a worn microphone on a silver stand. The room was loud, kids joking, texting, tossing wrappers in bins. Chase Welling sat near the middle, surrounded by his usual group. He wore a baseball hoodie and rested his feet on the chair in front of him. He hadn't looked at her once since it happened. Ms. Diaz, the school counselor, stood at the mic and tapped it twice. All right, everyone, settle down, please. We're going to get started. She spoke for a few minutes about upcoming field trips, club meetings, and a reminder to clean up after lunch. But Jania barely heard her. She was sitting in the front row, gripping her folded paper. Her legs bounced. You're up in 2, Ms. Diaz whispered. Jania stood. Students were still half distracted when Ms. Diaz spoke again. Before we dismiss, one of our students asked to say a few words. Please give your attention to Jania Cole. Some kids looked up. Others didn't. But then she stepped up onto the platform. Hoodie still on, hands a little shaky, and silence slowly followed her to the mic. She unfolded her paper, looked at it, then looked up. She didn't speak for a full 5 seconds. And then, my name is Jania Cole. I'm 12 years old, and I want to talk about what happened to me this week. Eyes started lifting. Phones started recording. But not just about what someone did to me. I want to talk about why it happened, and what it means when people laugh instead of help. And then she opened her mouth. The gym was dead quiet. You could hear the hum of a phone vibrating in someone's backpack, a shoe scuffing the floor, a cough from somewhere near the back. But no one was speaking. Even the ones who'd usually whisper during announcements were just watching. Jania's voice didn't shake. Not once. I was sitting at my desk when a classmate poured glue into my hair, she said, looking straight ahead, not down at her paper. I didn't see it coming. I felt it when I tried to move and my hair was stuck to my shirt. A few heads turned toward Chase. He shifted in his seat, his face going pink, but he didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, trying to stay calm while it dried on my scalp. She let that sit in the air. I went to the nurse. I was told I'd need to cut my hair. Not trim it. Cut it off. They said it was just a prank. That no one meant for it to be this bad. She looked over the crowd. But what if it hadn't been glue? What if it was something worse? Would it still be a prank? Or would it finally matter then? Some students looked down at their shoes. Others stared straight ahead. There were people in that room who laughed. People who said nothing. People who filmed me while I sat in pain. You didn't have to pour the glue to be part of it. Someone up front shifted awkwardly in their seat. Jania kept going. You might think hair doesn't matter, that it's just hair, but it's not. Not to me. I didn't wear weaves. I didn't straighten it. This was mine. Natural. Real. It took years to grow. Her fingers reached up to the edge of her hood. And now it's gone. She pulled it back slowly. No scarf, no more covering. Her head was mostly shaved, but not clean. Patches remained in uneven clumps, areas where the glue had left scars or had been impossible to clean completely. The room gasped, not loudly, but audibly. One girl in the third row wiped her face with her sleeve. Chase slouched lower in his chair. I didn't come up here to make anyone feel bad, Jania said. I came up here to remind you that how you treat someone matters, that laughing when someone's hurt isn't harmless, that silence helps the people doing wrong. She paused. I'm not broken, and I'm not going to hide. Not from you. Not from anyone. A teacher off to the side clapped once, just once. But slowly, others joined in. A few students stood. One girl, Jania thought her name was Tara, walked up and hugged her, without asking. Others followed. By the end, the mic had gone quiet, and Jania was surrounded by people, some she'd never spoken to before, reaching out, whispering that they were sorry, that they were proud, that they didn't know how to say it until now. Ms. Diaz walked over and touched her shoulder. You want to go sit down? Jania nodded, this time just a little. She stepped down from the platform. Not fast, not like she was fleeing, like she had said what needed to be said and didn't need to rush anymore. She didn't look back at Chase as she walked by. She didn't need to. He looked at the floor the entire time. But what happened next? No one saw coming. By the time Jania got back to her classroom, her phone was buzzing with messages. Not from strangers, but from classmates. Kids she hadn't talked to all year. I didn't know what to say back then. I'm sorry. That was brave. Seriously. I cried a little. Don't tell nobody. She didn't answer them. Not yet. She needed to sit with what had just happened. For the first time in days, her shoulders weren't tense. Her fingers weren't clenching anything. She just sat there and let herself be. Meanwhile, the school office was chaos. Parents had started calling in before the assembly had even ended. Someone had gone live from the gym, and clips were already circulating online. The local news had caught wind of it by late afternoon. And Chase? He got pulled from class. Not by security, not by the police. Just Mr. Holbrook, who asked him to come to the office. Quietly. Jania didn't see him the rest of the day. She didn't care to. By the end of the final bell, Ms. Langley walked over to her and crouched down beside her desk. You okay? Jania nodded. Yeah. The teacher looked like she was about to say something else, but stopped. I'm proud of you. Jania gave a small, tired smile. Thanks. As she stepped outside, Noelle was waiting at the curb. Jania got in, closed the door, and for a minute they didn't speak. No music, just the click of the seatbelt. You did it, Noelle finally said. I don't know what I did, but yeah, I did it. Her mom laughed. You changed something. The next day, things were different. Not perfect, but different. For starters, Chase Welling was suspended for 10 days. Not for the first time. He'd had behavioral incidents before, but this one couldn't be ignored. Especially not now, not after it had been seen by thousands of people on phones and tablets and Twitter feeds. The principal called an emergency staff meeting that afternoon. Teachers were asked to be more vigilant in the classroom. A message was sent to all parents about creating a safe and inclusive learning environment. But the part that mattered most to Jania? It wasn't the suspension. It wasn't the statement. It was the way people looked at her now. Not with pity, with respect. In the hallway, a 7th grader she barely knew smiled at her and said, Hey, your hair looks strong. Not pretty. Not nice. Strong. Jania held on to that word for the rest of the day. In lunchline, a group of boys who had once joked behind her back stood quietly as she walked by. They didn't say much, but they didn't laugh. And sometimes silence is its own apology. During science class, Ms. Cardenas had the class discuss personal ethics and courage. Jania noticed the lesson wasn't in the textbook. And later that week, she got pulled into the media center, where a woman in a black blazer introduced herself as a journalist from a local station. Jania glanced at her mom, who had taken the day off to be there, and gave a small nod. The interview was quick. Soft lighting, one camera. The journalist asked questions about how she felt, what she wanted people to know, what she would say to someone else going through the same thing. Jania answered calmly, without notes. I want people to stop waiting until someone's hurt to care, she said. I want schools to stop brushing things off until they go viral. I want girls like me to stop feeling like they have to be silent. When it aired, it was only a 2-minute segment. But it was enough. Enough to make a middle school girl in another state email her, Enough to get a school board member to request a meeting. Enough to matter. But Jania didn't want the fame. She wanted the right thing to be done, and done for the right reasons. By the end of the week, people were paying attention, not just in the school, but across the district. A nearby high school invited Jania to speak during their morning announcements. A community center in Asheville reached out to her mother asking if she'd come to a youth panel. Someone even mentioned a city councilwoman had shared the clip of her speech online, calling it a moment that reminds us of the power in our children's voices. But at home, Jania was still just Jania. She took the trash out, fed the cat, and helped her mom wash dishes. Life didn't pause because people suddenly decided she mattered. She still woke up with a sore spot near the back of her head. She still caught her reflection sometimes and felt that strange ache of loss, not just of hair, but of something quieter. Something taken. She was still trying to name it. One night, she sat on the edge of her bed, knees pulled to her chest, while Noelle folded laundry at the foot of the bed. The local news was playing in the background, rerunning her story for the third night in a row. "I didn't think they'd care this much," Jania said. Noelle didn't look up. "They care because you didn't stay quiet." "I didn't even say anything new. People go through stuff like this all the time." "Exactly," Noelle replied. "You said what people already feel, but are too scared to say out loud." Jania stared at her comforter. "I didn't do it to be famous." "I know that. And the right people know it too." She paused. "What if they forget next week?" "They might," her mom said, stacking a shirt. "But the ones who needed to hear you, the ones who needed someone to say something, they won't." At school, Chase returned after his suspension. He kept his head down. No jokes, no loud whispers, no smug grins. He didn't speak to Jania, and she didn't go looking for an apology. One afternoon, she passed him in the hall and saw the principal walking beside him, clipboard in hand again. Chase didn't make eye contact, but his steps were slower, like he knew he wasn't untouchable anymore. Later that week, Ms. Langley handed out a new classroom rule sheet, one with a section specifically addressing harassment and non-verbal bullying. Every student had to initial it. Quietly. Some rolled their eyes, others just signed. The point had been made. Even some of the teachers changed. The social studies teacher started opening up conversations about responsibility and what it means to protect one another. The librarian added new books to the display shelf, titles by authors Jania had never seen in the school before. Something was shifting. It wasn't perfect, but it was starting. One afternoon, as Jania packed up her things, Tara, the girl who hugged her during the assembly, walked over. "I liked what you said," she murmured. "I mean, I didn't like what happened, but I liked how you stood up there." Jania smiled. "Thanks." Tara hesitated. "I'm trying to grow my hair natural again." Jania tilted her head. "Yeah? Yeah, my mom keeps telling me to straighten it for picture day, but I don't want to anymore." Jania nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to change it." Tara smiled back. "I know. Now I kind of believe that." They didn't say anything else. They didn't need to. In the end, Jania didn't need a stage to matter. She didn't need a camera or applause. What she needed, and what she got, was the chance to be seen clearly. To say what she felt and know that someone out there, even just one person, heard her. That was enough for now. But there was still one thing left to say. A few weeks passed. The hallway whispers faded. The phones stopped recording, and attention drifted to other school drama, some lost backpack, a fight behind the gym, the upcoming winter dance. Life at Henderson Middle moved on. But Jania didn't forget. Not when she stood in front of the mirror brushing the baby hairs at her hairline, trying to shape something soft around the new growth. Not when she saw another girl flinch as a group of boys started laughing too loudly behind her in the cafeteria. Not when she walked into class and saw teachers watching a little more carefully, asking questions a little more gently. She noticed. Quietly. Carefully. There were still days she felt small, but not invisible. One Tuesday afternoon, Ms. Diaz pulled her aside after lunch and handed her a thick envelope. Some of these letters are for you, from other students. Some are from parents. Jania opened it when she got home. There were over 30 letters inside. One from a 6th grade girl named Ruby, who said she wore a wig because of a skin condition, and that watching Jania speak gave her the courage to finally stop hiding behind her hoodie. One from a boy who said he'd laughed the day of the glue incident, but it had bothered him all week. He didn't know how to apologize, so he wrote. There was a note from an older woman, a grandmother of another student, who simply said, "Your story made me cry. I hope my grandkids grow up to be as brave as you." Jania sat on her bed and read every single one. Then she folded them neatly, tucked them into a shoebox, and slid it under her bed. Not to forget, but to remember that even when people act like they're not paying attention, they are. At school, she never got an apology from Chase, but she no longer needed one. What he had taken wasn't hers anymore. It had already grown into something stronger. Her hair was slowly coming back, uneven still, but steady. And for the first time, she didn't dream of it being long again. She just wanted it to feel like hers. No expectations, no shame. During the last week before winter break, her principal asked if she'd be willing to record a message for a school-wide anti-bullying campaign. She agreed, but only if she could write it herself. She stood in front of a small video crew, with Ms. Diaz watching from behind the camera. She wore no scarf, no hoodie, just a simple black t-shirt and a little gold necklace her grandmother had given her for her 12th birthday. She looked into the camera and said, "My name is Jania Cole. I used to think that being quiet kept me safe, that staying invisible meant no one could hurt me. But the truth is, silence doesn't protect you. It just lets the wrong people get louder." She paused, then smiled gently. "You don't have to shout to be strong. You just have to stand." That video didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It stayed inside the school, shown during homeroom, shared with new students, used as part of staff training. But for every kid sitting in the back, wondering if their voice mattered, it did. And for the ones who thought they could get away with small cruelties, whispered jokes, or careless pranks, it reminded them there's always someone watching, someone listening, someone who will speak up. Because one girl did. Not to be a hero, not for applause, but because sometimes when the world shrinks you, the only thing left to do is grow anyway. So she did. If this story meant something to you, if you saw yourself in Jania or someone you know, share it. Let someone else know that being hurt doesn't make you weak, and standing up doesn't make you loud. It makes you heard.